UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, good morning indeed, and glad to have your company here with us on your national broadcaster. It is time for us to check in with Good Morning Uganda Extra. I am Joram Paul Sonko, and to you, our viewer from Northern Uganda, this would be a very good conversation for you to follow up and be part of, because we will be opening up our lines for you to send in your messages, because the topic we have for discussion is pretty much focusing on economic growth, but majorly looking at agriculture involvement of the people in Northern Uganda. So why not? If you want to be part of the conversation, you can share your views, questions on the same matter, so that we can get to know of any challenges that you, a farmer, or a viewer who knows a farmer in Northern Uganda, what are they facing, which challenges are they facing, and then also, what do you think the government should do to improve on the quality of produce that comes out from Northern Uganda? But better yet, what then can the government do to ensure that the people in Northern Uganda can actively get or engage in commercial agriculture? And if at all they are engaging in commercial agriculture, what more efforts are needed? One, from the civil society organization, the private sector maybe, and the government, to ensure that the agriculturalists, the farmers, and then you as a consumer greatly benefit from whatever is being produced from the agricultural perspective in Northern Uganda, and how we can boost the economy of Uganda through regional growth. Now, besides that, my guest this morning is Charles Abola, who does join us this morning. I'll give him space to tell us more about himself as we get into our conversation. A very good morning, Charles, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Joram, and good morning, viewers. Charles Abola is my name. I ordinarily work as a management consultant with a special interest in rural development and more so local economic development. And over the years, I've participated in quite a number of engagements at a national level with the Ministry of Local Government in supporting the promotion of local economic development.
Okay.
Other than that, yes, I am also a practicing commercial farmer in Northern Uganda, and so it's nice to speak to this subject. Thank you, Joram.
Okay, and with that said, you're a practicing commercial farmer, and in my introduction I've mentioned about commercial agriculture. Let's start from there. If you can give my viewer, also someone who has not been to Northern Uganda, or anyone who doesn't have an idea that in Northern Uganda there is a lot of commercial agriculture potential, an overview of what the state of agriculture is within the region.
Thank you once again, Joram. Northern Uganda, and maybe let me start with that. The Northern Uganda that I'm going to speak about is the traditional north that we know, that spans from Karamoja into Lango, Acholi, and then into West Nile. That's the traditional Northern Uganda that I want to confine my discussions in relation to. Now, Northern Uganda, as defined by that geographical spread, is largely an agricultural region. An agricultural region because, one, it has significant land resources that is arable, good for agriculture, whether it's crop husbandry or animal husbandry. Two is the climate is generally good, with exception of parts of Karamoja. The rest of the north, West Nile, Acholi, and Lango enjoy a bimodal rainfall regime with relatively good rains. Acholi sub-region in particular, and I think Gulu receiving probably the second highest rainfall after Entebbe. And then traditionally, yes, people have been involved in agriculture. The main livelihoods of people have been centered around agriculture, both growing crops and then rearing livestock. Now, looking at agriculture today and looking back, agriculture was largely subsistence, basically production for domestic consumption. And the focus at the time was largely on food crops, millet, sorghum, groundnuts, Maize is a much later thing, and rice now a much later crop that I'll speak to in a short while. And then, of course, people had livestock, cattle, and particularly the small ruminants, goats, sheep, that they reared. The region, of course, has had its own turbulent history around the conflicts that have engulfed the region right from the post-independence, if I may start from the most recent post-independence period, and that had significant interruptions on agriculture, with many people either losing out because of conflict, and in particular in Acholi, where you had people in internally displaced persons camps. However, since then, since the end of the war, we've seen an increasing move towards commercialization. Crops such as rice are now grown in West Nile in Acholi, and these were not initially our, crops that were grown for cash. We've seen an increase in the in growing of maize, for instance. That is also all largely focused towards the market. And then most recently, you have crops like soybean, sunflower, and the others that are coming, at a commercial scale. But traditionally, we should note that the cash crops in the region were basically two. West Nile sub-region focused mostly on tobacco. That is what the independence administrations introduced. And then Acholi and Lango largely on cotton. And that's where you had this very big white elephant Lira spinning mill, quite a big investment at the time by the government, because it was focused on cotton production, which the region was doing quite well. Karamoja, not quite. Karamoja largely animals, cattle, has been their main activity. So definitely, we are now seeing increasingly a shift from subsistence for home consumption to commercialization. However, there are still some challenges that need to be addressed in that commercial path. Thank you.
Now let's look at the mindset of the people in northern Uganda towards farming or agriculture in general, not necessarily subsistence and let's say commercial agriculture. When you look at the mindset, what is the percentage of those highly interested in taking this as an activity of a day-to-day living?
Okay, and so maybe first, just again to say, as I said earlier on, agriculture is the mainstay of most households.
Okay.
Up to 80% of the households in northern Uganda participate in agriculture in one way or the other. It may not be their primary occupation. And it's estimated that anywhere up to 68% actually leave agriculture is their mainstay. So agriculture is first and foremost an activity that most persons in northern Uganda across this area, with the exception of, yes, as I'll talk about, Karamoja, is the one that presents a bit of a unique. But even then, agriculture existed. Now, in terms of mindsets, again, agriculture still is perceived by many as an activity for people in the rural countryside. And so you find even young men and women who leave school have not yet fully embraced agriculture as an alternative source of employment. They are not really looking at that. However, at the household levels where you have the majority smallholder farmers, I think increasingly people have embraced commercialization of agriculture. People are beginning to look at agriculture as something that they can derive a livelihood from. Of course, this is significantly impacted by many other factors that we can talk through, the issues that particularly see farmers yield very low production. There are quite a number of issues that relate to, say, quality of inputs, that is seeds, limited use of pesticides, fertilizers, of course, the farm tools that are largely rudimentary, and so on and so forth. So they are quite, but I think generally there is a strong shift, and people, and particularly smallholder farmers, I'm strongly embracing commercial agriculture.
All right, and now let's look at some of the specific government interventions that have been employed in northern Uganda over the years and that have been steadily taken up by the commercial agriculture practitioners, and then the farmers in general.
Okay. And also, allow me then to say, first and foremost, government interventions have largely focused the challenges or the issues in agriculture.
Okay.
And among them, and I'll start with the first one, which has largely been issue around the quality of inputs. We've seen over the years through Operation Wealth Creation, the provision of planting materials, cassava, be it cassava, cuttings, seeds, maize, soybean, and others. So government has made an attempt to address the issue of quality of inputs through provision of inputs. There are, of course, challenges that come with that at times, mostly around the timeliness of delivery. We've even seen this happen through another program of government, the Agricultural Cluster Development Project, where there was a cost-shared arrangement that farmers were able to access quality seed and also post-harvest tools or materials, particularly tarpaulins for those that required to do that. So that is one area. Government has made an intervention, notwithstanding, as I said, the shortcomings.
Okay.
The second area that government has worked with development partners to try and address is the post-harvest side of things. But there are still quite a number of gaps. We've seen a number of produce bulking stores set up across northern Uganda, quite a number in Acholi. The question, though, is that many of them are not in use at the moment. Many of them have been left to lie idle, largely because of the movement away of persons from, at the time, the transit camps. Many of them were designed and constructed during the period when people were moving, were in between the camps and their homes. And with people having moved away, many of these facilities have remained idle. So there is that attempt to address the post-harvest and particularly storage and bulking aspect of things. We have also seen micro-irrigation now taking place. The Ministry of Agriculture is providing micro-irrigation, again on a cost-shared arrangement. And yes, the uptake has still not been very high. And I think that is an aspect that needs a lot of mindset issues. People still think if we have rain, that is fine. I maybe don't need to buy an irrigation equipment. But of course, there are also small micro-irrigation schemes. So that means you're really looking at 1, 2, 3 acres at the most. And if you have a bigger area, then it's not possible. So most of it has been used for vegetables and other horticultural products. Yes, government has also invested in post-harvest, in milling facilities, and I think these have been largely through the Ministry of Local Government that have delivered mills and other value addition machinery. Challenge with many of these is that many of them are non-functional. Some of them have broken down because of the management arrangements that were in place, but also in some instances the requisite infrastructure, power. You know, you have a mill that requires 3-phase power line and it's not available, and so it can't run on a generator. Yeah. So
and when you look at the desire to have northern Uganda as an agriculture commercial hub in the years, what do you think needs to be done by the government? I want us to first of all look at the perspective of the government, because one, the government is having initiatives through the national budget, and the national budget for the past 3 years, inclusive of this coming financial year, is looking at human capital development and empowering households. So lifting the households into the money economy is something that the government is highly looking into. And one of the major key pillars of the budget is looking at commercialization of the agriculture industry, saying that every farmer can at least earn both ways. One, you're getting food, but at the end of the day, you're also getting money out of it. Right. So what do you think the government should do further so that we can see more of the agricultural exports coming in from northern Uganda, also that we can have regional balance of exports, especially around the agriculture sector?
Thank you. And I think that's a very, very important. First, I must thank government for the focus on agriculture. Although, I mean, through the theme of even the just read out budget. However, as we all know, the percentage allocated to agriculture of the national budget still remains under 5%, or it's in that range. And so that is largely inadequate. I have seen there are initiatives that have been proposed, such as mechanization, addressing issues of post-harvest losses, and so on and so forth, that are important. But allow me to contextualize this. In the context of northern Uganda, I think commercialization has largely suffered because of one main factor. It's, in my opinion, the lack of an integrated value chain in northern Uganda. What do I mean here is you have different players in the agriculture value chain. Producers, you have transporters, you have aggregators, you have millers, and ultimately exporters. What we've seen over the years in northern Uganda is that the value chain does not seem to work. So what happens is farmers move in, they are told there is a demand for soybean. And all the smallholder farmers, remember this is the vast majority, the smallholder farmers will rush in to produce soybean. And before they know it, the prices are really, really low. So first and foremost, so with low prices, it just completely shifts the interest of farmers. They will then say, well, if this is what I'm going to get, let me go back to. So I think the first aspect that needs to be addressed and systematical, and I must again thank government for, I mean, initiatives like such as PDM, but I think a little more thinking needs to go into how these value chains can be integrated. How can we allow for specialization at the different levels? If I am an aggregator, or if I am a miller, can I focus on milling and work with the other partners along the way? Take an interest in the quality of seeds because it determines how much is going to be produced. Take an interest in ensuring that we all lobby for infrastructure that allows the movement of these agricultural commodities from the farmers to the stores and then from the stores to the mills. So we should allow for that specialization. Give smallholders, allow them to operate in their space, which is production, support them in there through the initiatives government has talked of, mechanization, and I want to insist mostly, again, we should focus on appropriate technologies because we've seen tractors distributed. I was just reading an audit report from some findings on tractors that were delivered by the Ministry of Agriculture or procured and handed over to farmers. And you can see that a number of the machinery are lying idle now because of simple breakdown. So appropriate technologies for mechanization, I think that is key. So that farmers are able to open up more land, farmers are able to produce. Two, and critically, is to focus on the quality of inputs, and particularly seeds. Okay. We have NARO and all these other agencies that need to publicize the technologies, the seeds that they are producing that are drought resistant, tolerant, pest and disease tolerant, and so on and so forth. But also more importantly, high yielding. Because farmers, it is extremely painful for a farmer to buy, say for instance, a maize seed at 15,000 a kilogram. And then at the end of the day, you have a yield of under 1 ton from that. It is extremely painful, and yet you are being told when you're buying the seeds that you're going to get 2.5 tons. So we need to really focus more and pay more attention on seeds and ensure that if for seeds that are being imported, the quality checks on these seeds are done and done well, so that farmers do not lose out when they have to pay lots. But I would focus more on our indigenous capacity to raise seeds, and that's why I'm talking about NARO. Okay. 3, of course, is around the post-harvest. I think post-harvest technologies, and I mentioned it as part of the integrated value chains. I think we really need to support farmers at different levels to be able to manage quality, so that we have less issues of aflatoxins. A lot of our commodities are not able to get into the export markets because of aflatoxins. And we really need to find a way of managing this. And if we're able to manage that, we will be able to push forward. And then fourthly, perhaps, yes, I think going forward, irrigation is something that we must begin to think about, and think about much more serious investments in this regard. I know, yes, it's not going to be a very easy thing, because if you have so many smallholder farmers, it probably raises the cost, and that is the bulk. But I think we are still able to work with maybe models that can ultimately get farmers out. So I think for me those would be, and of course, value addition facilities. Again, the PDM speaks to these, but I think we really need to see how we move away from the small hammer mills that people have in the communities to value addition plants that produce quality, and quality that can be exported.
Have we seen some private sector intervention over the years in setting up this kind of collaborations and partnerships to support some of the farmers in northern Uganda, or it has always been them just coming in to buy produce?
Yes, it's largely been that. I mean, in northern Uganda suffers from very low levels of industrialization. And this can be attributed to many factors, including power, which was very unstable, but now we're happy with Karuma and many of the others. I think that is something that can be decisively dealt with by government in terms of ensuring that this power is made available. But generally, industrialization has been low in northern Uganda. You have operations in Kampala, mere manufacturing plants in Kampala that come to offtake. And usually, because of the other challenges around transportation and all these, they work through village agents and traders. And that is where the problem tends to have. So there has largely been any direct engagements by private sector actors, for instance, in the milling space, to try and reach out through contract farming arrangements with farmers that guarantee farmers stability of price, because that is key. And in the absence of stability of price, our mills, our manufacturers will continue to suffer, because what will happen is, this time round the price is low, all farmers shift away from that commodity to another. So what does that mean? A manufacturer that is specializing in that commodity will have less to get from northern Uganda. And I think those are the sort of inclusive models that we need to. We need to see the private sector engaging more with the smallholder farmers that are the bulk of these. For the biggest commercial farmers, yes, they have the benefit of operations at scale. So at times they are able to negotiate price with millers in Kampala. Okay. We see that with some of the foreign investors that are operating, particularly commercial farms in Noya, in Amoro. We see a bit of a difference, but the issue is with the smallholder farmers.
All right, now when we do return after the break, myself and Charles Abola will be giving an insight of the 5th biannual private sector CEO retreat, which is focusing on transforming northern Uganda into a commercial production and logistics hub for export, amongst other key priorities that the government wants to look out for. And seeing some phone calls coming in, please just send messages, and if time is on our side, we shall go through some of those messages on WhatsApp and SMS. If you have any comment or question in regards to being part of northern Uganda's agricultural growth and production that will lift the economy in general and household incomes within northern Uganda. But more of the conversations here are returning immediately after the break. Stick around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks.
networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Hey, business people of Uganda, the Ugandan National Lottery is coming. It's the perfect opportunity to boost your business. Zimba your business by becoming an authorized Uganda National Lottery agent. By paying a security deposit of just 250,000 shillings, you will receive your very own Uganda National Lottery terminal, expert training from the pros themselves, and marketing materials to skyrocket your sales. And with a generous 5% commission on every ticket sold, the potential for earnings is limitless. Don't miss out. Act now and call us toll-free at 0800 33 44 33 to see if you qualify. Join us today and Zimba your business. Ituba Uganda is regulated by the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Once upon a time, there lived identical twins who gave birth to beautiful princes and princesses.
Their mothers gave their babies' bodies a lot of care by applying on their skin with baby Junior jelly.
So dried their chariots and everyone would admire their glowing skin. Fun fact, baby Junior prevents diaper rash, dry and sensitive skin.
Moms all over Africa love baby Junior jelly. Baby Junior's the skin. No more worries anymore. Boo, 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 boo. Baby Junior. Baby Junior.
We are bringing you a brand new show, Teens Crown, right here at UBC. We bring to you the youth gigs where we tell you what the youth do, be it at your school, be it at your campus. Are you a youth out there that enjoys hanging out? Well, we shall be reaching out to your campuses, bringing glam to the events at your campuses. Is it a bazaar? Is it a prom? We shall bring to you all that on our show. Be showcasing the government's youth skilling and empowerment projects during the show. This show will be brought to you by I myself, Judy Bear, on UBC. Watch out for us.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, Good Morning Uganda Extra does continue. Our conversation is enhancing agriculture and economic growth in northern Uganda, a conversation that is open because of the rich potential that northern Uganda harbors. So that means we need to open up these conversations and continuous discussions on how many of the farmers within northern Uganda can easily tap into the various markets to promote commercial agriculture and also see the increase of agricultural produce, especially those from the northern Uganda, and also try to have that regional balance of agriculture distribution and agriculture's relevance to society. As much as we continue to speak about agriculture being the backbone of our economy, on the practical bit of it, it is rather a different kind of feeling. But how then can we enhance productivity levels from the agriculture sector? That is why I do have Mr. Charles Abola this morning to have more discussions of the same. He's also a practicing commercial agriculturalist from northern Uganda, if that word does exist. But at least he's practical in agriculture, and he's part of the people who have earned something from being or from engaging in commercial activities of the agricultural sector. Now, besides that, Charles, let's get into the recent visit of the Presidential CEO Forum. How timely was this engagement, and of what value does it add to the region? And then also, if at all it has any impact, where are the key impacts that we can pick up from the visit?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think the visit by the team from the Presidential CEO Forum was timely. Why is it came at a time when farmers had harvested their produce and were actually experiencing one of the worst incidences in their agricultural activities. Maize was a crop that was grown on scale by both the commercial, the bigger commercial operators, and then many of the smallholder farmers. However, what happened was the price of maize had dropped to anywhere between 300 to 450 shillings. And so there was a general outcry from farmers, but more importantly, the last season had been one that also farmers saw a lot of unreliability of the rains. And so many yields of farmers were largely affected by the volume or the amount of rainfall that was available. So farmers were hit, farmers suffered a double tragedy. One from, actually, I would say a triple tragedy. The first one being seed. Farmers went out, bought expensive seed. Germination rates were not as good. Yields were not as good. And then, worst in between, the rains were not favorable. And then lastly, the price of maize drops. So it was actually very timely because farmers were really facing a crisis. Some of the farmers that had actually borrowed money from commercial banks were in a lot of stress because the banks needed money to be paid and they were not even seeing themselves being able to pay back. So it came in very timely. The team went out and visited across the region, visited farmers, was able to hold interactive sessions with farmers and was able to listen firsthand on the challenges that, that farmers have been facing, and also pick recommendations and suggestions from farmers on what they think needs to be done. So I think generally for me that is it. The visit was very timely. Farmers were given an opportunity. Now let's not forget that one of the biggest challenges with a lot of programming, and this even affects agriculture, is that many times programs are designed with very little input from the target beneficiaries. So when you have these kind of sessions that provide for that provide for participation of the farmers, then I think we are beginning to move in the right direction. We are beginning to have an inclusive model of even developing policies, developing programs, and I think that for me was a good opportunity. I think farmers were happy that at least at this very time they were interacting with a forum that is as close to the president as one would expect.
Okay. Now we do also have an upcoming annual private sector CEO retreat, which is this time around focusing on transforming northern Uganda into a commercial production and logistics hub for export. Now, when you look at this upcoming event, first of all, if you can give us an overview of the event and what is going to transpire during this time around. Also, my viewer should as well know that he is among the keynote speakers that day. You just give us an overview of the same.
Okay, thank you. I won't go into too much depth because I'm not really part of the team at the PCF. Okay. However, what I know is that it's a 3-day event. The first day is really going to be an open day for interactions, farmers to share their experiences. and talk about the issues and challenges that affect farmers. Then the second day will largely be a day that involves now business leaders, technocrats in governments and others interfacing with farmers and presenting what policies, what intervention initiatives that they have for the private sector. So basically, again, an interaction between the farmers who will be represented in different clusters with policymakers and business leaders, which I think is again good, as I mentioned earlier on, because it begins to bring in the aspects of inclusivity that is particularly important. And then the third and final day, from what I know, will involve, yes, a series of keynote speeches or talks to which I've been invited. And then, but again, largely focus on a presentation of the areas that government and particularly the president needs to take into account. And he will be given an opportunity as the chief guest to also be able to speak to this. So that's how I know the forum will be organized.
Let's look at the commercial hub and the logistics hub in Gulu. When you see, over the years, we've been doing some documentaries, doing field visits of the hub, and then also, you know, promoting it in an aspect of its potential to lift the region, but pretty much give an advantage for the growth of exports or for the increase of exports within the northern region. How far are we with it? And of course, what potential does it have?
Yes, thank you. The Gulu Logistics Hub is indeed one of those very important institutions and arrangements that there is for promotion of export. It was, and as you probably well know, constructed, and phase one of it is complete. There are a series of warehouses, there are offices for the Uganda Revenue Authority, provision for offices for a whole range of other actors, clearing and forwarding agents, and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of the layout of the Gulu Logistics Hub, it provides space for packaging, cleaning, grading, and warehousing of commodities in bulk. And because it's linked to the rail line that comes all the way from Mombasa and is intended, and at least for the moment ends in Pakwach, but for which rehabilitation is ongoing in between the Gulu and Tororo line, it definitely provides great opportunities for lowering costs of transportation when it comes to export, because most of our exports have been moving on road. And with plans also that government has underway to link the standard gauge railway into South Sudan, I think that will be a very significant milestone in terms of moving commodities that are produced in northern Uganda through to the export markets in southern Sudan, and then of course to the DR Congo through the West Nile and border access points. So Gulu Logistics Hub, indeed, once operationalized, because at the moment, I think from the last visit I made, we only had the Uganda Railways Office and the Uganda Revenue Authority operating. I have learned that it's actually going to be officially launched as part of the upcoming 5th CEO Forum, activities of the 5th CEO Forum in Gulu. And I think once it's operational, there are great opportunities that exporters should be able to have in terms of managing the whole processes related to getting exports ready, commodities ready for export.
All right, let me get into some of the comments here this morning, and then we can simply wind up with our discussion. This is Phillips from Karamoja. Good morning, Charles. Thank you for the discussion. Every region in Uganda has its own gift from God and distribution of natural resources that can make them the inhabitants, there to earn a living. Karamoja has been endowed with savanna grasslands that suits the tearing of drought-resistant breeds of cows, goats, and sheep. Also, agriculture can equally thrive in the region if water production is provided. Now, Karamoja just needs to be supported to make use of livestock for commercial gain and not to destroy it in replacement with crops. I have such sentiment talks from some leaders. Karamoja has huge deposits of different kinds of minerals. How is it being used by government to develop the sub-region? Acholi too equally has a gift of God that God gave them and just needs to support to thrive better. Now, I think his concern here is we shouldn't be focusing on maybe one product, and then we can also try to build on the current economic activities within the region to boost. I think he'll give a comment on that. That is from Philip. Then good morning Uganda. This is Kabi Muzafaro Issa Abidie from Mufumbira C Cell in Jinja City, Northern Division. This one is just thanking us for the program. Let's get into what Philip was suggesting. He believes that every region, per se in Northern Uganda, is more specific to a given agricultural activity. And I think his focus is also looking at the idea of specialization, because there's the beauty of specializing at the end of the day. If you specialize and do what you know best with support from the government, the chances are high the region can as well grow. But he also touches on a huge element that at times you realize that the region never earns from what they, let's say, grow, or let's say the minerals that they have. How then can we support regional growth? But by supporting the farmers, but then also boosting the region.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I would really agree with the gentleman from Karamoja. Karamoja, and indeed just like the other regions of northern Uganda, all have some unique aspects of geography, climate, and even activities. And like he's rightly mentioned, Karamoja leads in this country in terms of the livestock population. Karamoja alone has, from the last livestock census of 2021, that UBOS just published a report in March of this year, shows that Karamoja has the highest number of livestock, cattle in this country, that stands at 2.4. So I think that is in itself an activity that can be looked at, you know, in the context of Karamoja. How can livestock rearing be promoted, notwithstanding, of course, the other issues that have affected the livestock sector in Karamoja. And I think so there is great opportunities that that there is. But just like other parts of that, and the broader northern Uganda as it is actually quite endowed with land resources. Karamoja likewise. There's significant land resources that can be used for a whole range of different agricultural or commercial agricultural initiatives that suit a particular region. I mean, talking just about perennials, you know, perennials were piloted, and particularly cashew nuts, were piloted in Karamoja and found to be doing very well, you know. But this has since not been taken up on a commercial scale. And now you have cashew nuts as one of the priority crops we are focusing on in the country. Now, the beauty of cashew nuts is that they're even drought tolerant. So it's also one of those. So we really need to get back to each of these regions and look at, say, what perennial crops can be grown. I mean, looking at the other parts of northern Uganda, coffee was never thought to be a crop. At least the colonial masters made us to believe cotton was our thing in northern Uganda, and tobacco. But coffee is doing very well in parts of northern Uganda. In West Nile, in Zombo, Arabica coffee does very well. In parts of Arua, coffee is doing very well. You come to Gulu and Lango, coffee is doing very well. So there are great opportunities. Now, in terms, and then of, yes, mineral potential across the entire region. If we look at West Nile, they are quite also blessed with a number of minerals. You come into Acholi, oil, graphite now in Orom. You come into Lango, you come into Karamoja, all these gold, lime, you know, and all marble. So there is a lot. Now, what needs to happen? And I think it's important that you've raised this. I think what needs to happen for these regions to begin to benefit as a region, which also has spillover benefits in terms of employment creation and raising household incomes is to begin to get industrialization into the region. As I mentioned earlier on, industrialization in the region is at a very low level. We need to begin to see more industries. Can we have an industrial park that is serviced in Karamoja? Can we have an industrial park in Lango? Can we have an industrial park in Acholi? NEBI has already gazetted space for this. And these can be done, and we should even look at options where this can be done through public-private partnerships. We have seen an industrial park established, private industrial park in Kapeka, which is doing quite well. It's attracted quite a number of industries. Now, when we do that, then we begin to see less movement of these minerals away from the regions and being processed in plants that are in these regions, which provide employment, provide the local government related taxes, you know, property rates and so on and so forth. So the local governments end up also benefiting. But then the households that provide a whole range of commodities, you know, food and all the others also benefit from this. So the regions definitely can benefit, but we need to focus on industrialization. We need to focus on developing infrastructure so that the industries find it attractive to go and locate there, because if you don't have roads, then how are industrialists going to take an interest in getting there? If power is not stable, how are industrialists going to take an interest in investing there? So I think we definitely can get the regions to benefit alongside the individuals. Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you very much for being part of the show this morning. What would be your parting shots, maybe?
Thank you. I think for me, it's Northern Uganda is ready for commercialization. It is already happening. What we need to do is really focus on getting all stakeholders on board. The more inclusive models that we adopt for commercialization and industrialization, the greater we'll see the region move from its 7.7% contribution to national GDP to anywhere up to 30%, because it has the factor endowments, and these factor endowments need to be tapped. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That is Charles Abola, who has been joining us this morning for a conversation on enhancing agriculture and economic growth in northern Uganda. To you, our dear viewer who has been watching us from wherever you are, thank you very much. From the time we kick-started off the show at 6:30 a.m. and also not to forget Busoga bloggers who are watching live from Busoga Bloggers Association office in Jinja City. Thank you very much for your time and being part of the discussion this morning. With that, we do put an end to our conversation here. We'll be back tomorrow with the GMU Friday edition. Do make it a deal to wake up with us at 6:30 a.m. Have yourselves a good day and a good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by...
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Hey, business people of Uganda, the Ugandan National Lottery is coming. It's the perfect opportunity to boost your business. Zimba your business by becoming an authorized Uganda National Lottery agent. By paying a security deposit of just 250,000 shillings, you will receive your very own Uganda National Lottery terminal, expert training from the pros themselves, and marketing materials to skyrocket your sales. And with a generous 5% commission on every ticket sold, the potential for earnings is limitless. Don't miss out. Act now and call us toll-free at 0800 33 44 33 to see if you qualify. Join us today and Zimba your business. Ituba Uganda is regulated by the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration,